I'm going to be sharing with you in this video how to create real, tangible, lasting change in your life, in your business, in your relationships, in your health, and how to actually step into the reality that you prefer to be in. Because here's the truth, is that there's a part of you that wants to change, but there's another part of you that doesn't actually want to change. It wants to stay stuck in the current reality that you're actually in, staying consistent with those patterns and those habits, and it wants to attach to that reality that it's currently in. Now, the deeper truth is that there's a part of you that always wants to change because that's your true nature. But another part of you, the false part of you, wants to stay comfortable. It doesn't want to change. It wants to stay in its own little box, and it doesn't actually want to change. So in this video, I'm going to share with you how to create tangible results in your business, in your health, in your relationships, how I personally created these results in my life, and how I created this change in my life, lasting, real change. So if you're new to this channel, I want you to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because I post a new video every single day. Also, I have a couple spots left for coaching. So if you want to apply for a free consultation, hit the link that's in the description box of this video. So the truth is that we all want to change into this new version of ourselves, right? We want to step into that 2.0 version of us, a brand new version of us. But another truth is that there's this deep heaviness, this part of you that doesn't actually want to change, and it wants to stay comfortable in its own little box. And we haven't reached the pain threshold for our current situation. Because the truth is that if you had awareness of your current living situation or whatever situation that you're in, and you truly were not happy with your situation, you would find a way to create change. Now, a lot of people just simply haven't stepped into that reality of really feeling the pain that they're in. They just have become so comfortable with that pain, even though it is painful to some people, they're just so comfortable in that pain. Now, I'm going to share with you something called the pain threshold, which is the first thing I want to share with you when it comes to creating real change. Because the truth is that if you truly step into the uncomfort of your situation, if you step into the heaviness and you imagine yourself where you would be headed for the next 5 years, if you stayed in your current situation, you might come to the conclusion that you cannot tolerate that life any longer. Now, here's the thing, is that people are very scared to experience fully that negativity and the consequences of being stuck in the reality that they're in. They're very stuck in the reality that they're in simply because they're unaware and unwilling to feel the heaviness of their current living situation. Because the truth is that if you reach what I call the pain threshold, you would actually create change inevitably in your life just because of the awareness that you have of you not being happy with your current situation. Now, the reason I call this the pain threshold is because when you realize how painful your life really is and the pain that would come as a result of staying in your current reality, what happens is that you naturally start to create change just because of that awareness that you have in your body of how negative it really is. I'm going to share with you a practical example of how this worked out in my life. So a couple months back, I was dropping out of school, and I really started to imagine what my life would be like if I stayed in this program of being a software developer in school, doing something that I absolutely did not enjoy. Now, here's the thing, is that when you're doing something that you don't like, the only reason you stay there is because you're not conscious of how much you hate it, and you start rationalizing why it's okay. And that's exactly what I did. So I really started to go deeper with the awareness I was developing from meditation, from expanding my consciousness, from going through my spiritual awakening. I started to really become conscious of the fact that this really wasn't for me, and that I started to become very aware of how much negativity there really was around being in this program. Now, here's the thing, is that I started to really step into that heaviness and imagine myself in the future if I really had to be stuck in a 9-to-5 job. I told myself, okay, you know what? Like, a 9-to-5 job, the truth is that you're not going to wake up at 9. You're going to wake up at like 6 or 7, and you're not going to come home at 5 either. You're going to come home at like 6, 7. like a little bit later. So you got to wake up at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and then you come home at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Now, when I started to really step into that heaviness, I realized that I don't want to be in a 9 to 5 job. Now, I was stuck in this idea of wanting to be stuck in school just to settle, but then when I really stepped into the heaviness and the reality of living a 9 to 5 job, it really started to hit me, and I realized that I absolutely do not want this. And then so what happened was I ended up becoming so conscious and so aware of how much I really, really did not enjoy where I was at, that I ended up creating change and I just dropped out of school. Now, this happened because I was very aware and very conscious, and I was going through a spiritual awakening. What does that mean? That means that I was so conscious and so aware of how much I did not enjoy where I was and where I was headed, that I just dropped out of school. Now, I didn't have an alternative plan to some degree. I did, but I was also very unsure, and I was stepping into the unknown and didn't really know where I was headed. But the truth is that I knew I didn't want that, so I was gonna find something. Now, a lot of people are afraid to really imagine the negative consequences of being stuck in their current reality. I always have this with my clients, and the truth is that you have to step into that uncomfort and truly imagine what it would be. Now, when you do this, you reach something called the pain threshold, where you become so conscious of the pain and the uncomfort of where you currently are that you thought it was comfortable, but really it's more uncomfortable to stay comfortable. You see, that's the problem, is that comfort is actually your greatest enemy. You're gonna stay comfortable, and in fact, that's gonna make you more uncomfortable in the long run because you're just seeking instant gratification. If you just stay comfortable, ultimately, in the long run, you're gonna end up being more uncomfortable. The truth is that you just gotta step into the uncomfort and imagine your reality. Where is your reality headed right now if you stay stuck in the current patterns that you're living in right now? What does that mean for your life 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line? What does that actually mean for you? To stay comfortable and stay stuck in your reality. For me, it was going to school. It was holding on to negative relationships that weren't serving me. It was doing things that were not benefiting my highest growth. What does that mean for your life? Now, the truth is that if you're truly conscious of that, you'll want to create change in your life. You'll reach something called the pain threshold, which is what I've been sharing with you, and you'll just create the change. It'll drive you to change because you're motivated to change because you're simply so conscious and aware of how much you don't actually want to change. Now, the problem is that when you realize you want to change, there's another part of you that still doesn't want to change because the ego does not want to change. Okay, actual change means that you have to level up and let go of the old ego sense of self, because in order to step into the uncomfort and step into the new 2.0 version of you, for me it was dropping out of school and creating videos daily, becoming a coach. Of course there's resistance. Now what you have to understand is that this resistance is going to come up when you try to create change, because that old version of you, that ego version of you, wants to stay comfortable. But the truth is that that 1.0 version of you ultimately will not lead to the path that you desire. It wants to stay comfortable, but here's the truth, is that that 1.0 version of you wants to stay so similar that it's actually unconsciously keeping itself there, rationalizing why it wants to be there, when the truth is that it doesn't actually want to be there. It doesn't actually want to be there, but it convinces itself why it does. Like that 1.0 version of you is going to hold you back in so many different ways. And it's so important to understand that when you try to step into that new reality, do you really think that 1.0 version of you is just going to want to change like that? Do you really think that's just how it works? Do you really think that your 1.0 version is willingly going to kill its old self off and step into the new identity? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I really do mean literally. When you're shifting into a new reality, the old version of you has to die. It has to die. It has to come into your consciousness and you have to let it go. Now, I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm not saying like if you let go of the old self, you have to kill the old self. Now, I know how that's how it sounds, but the truth is that really, to become a new version of you, it means letting go of the old version of you. So right now, if the current 1.0 version of you hates going to the gym and you want to become somebody that loves going to the gym, that version of you that you cling on to, you have to be ready to let that go. Now, do you think that resistance and heaviness is not going to come up in this process? It will. In fact, you have to expect that old version of you will try to pull you back, which is what I call the ego backlash. Now, this is super critical because a lot of people don't realize that the ego backlash is actually inevitably going to come up. Expect that the ego backlash is going to come up. Watch out for the ego backlash because it will come up. I'm not saying it to be pessimistic. I'm saying that the old version of you will want to stay the same. Now, some people think it's like, Francis, you're being awfully pessimistic here. This is not very inspiring and motivating. Well, what I'm sharing with you is that there's a deep core mechanism that runs our reality, which is why you are alive right now, that keeps you stuck in the same patterns and reality. So I'm not trying to be pessimistic here. I'm sharing with you a deep truth that runs the motivation in our life. Now, you have to understand that when you try to step into the new reality, your old self is not going to want to do this. Your old self doesn't want to meditate daily. Your old self doesn't want to go to the gym on a consistent basis. Your old self doesn't want to completely change its diet and become healthier. Your old self doesn't want to start a new business. Your old self doesn't want to step into step out of its comfort zone and create a new reality. Your old self doesn't want the money. Your old self doesn't want it doesn't want those things. Your old self wants to stay the same. Now understand that deeply. Understand that if you actually had the identity of that new version, you would already be that version, but you're not that version. So what's keeping you there? Deep subconscious programming and a homeostasis that keeps you stuck where you're at. Now, this is super, super critical to understand because when you understand this, what you see is that resistance inevitably comes up when you try to create change. Now, when you can watch out for that resistance and tangibly understand how to work through that resistance, what happens is that you're able to create a very powerful change. Now you understand that heaviness and resistance will inevitably come up in the process of creating real, tangible change. It will come up. Now, when you watch out for the ego backlash and you watch out for the 1.0 version of you, stopping you from becoming the 2.0 version of you that goes to the gym, eats healthy, has the business, you're going to be able to let go of that old version of you, observe it, release the resistance, and then let it go. The truth is that you need to be conscious of the old 1.0 version of you trying to pull you back into that programming as you try to reprogram your identity into the new version of you. That's the truth. That's how you create real, tangible change in your business, in your health. Because when you try to start a business, do you really think that old version of you is just gonna happily create the change and just drop out of school? Like I did. I dropped out of school. You think it's just an overnight process? No. I thought that I was going to be able to create my business in 2 to 3 months. No, there was a lot of resistance. The old version of me wanted to stay the same, but I was able to observe that resistance, let go of the old version of me by observing it and allowing it to be there in meditation, which I'll get to in just a moment. And then what happens is that you're able to continue with the new program, with the new version of you that you want to be, and stay consistent with that reality until it becomes a reality. Setting the intention that you will create that reality no matter what, even when the patterns come up, and they will, and you let them go. Now, here's the thing is that when you start letting go of this, it's going to be easier to step into that new reality because you're just letting go and releasing the resistance. So how do you actually do this at a tangible level? Well, what you do is you have to start meditating. You have to start understanding how to observe the old self and develop consciousness of the old self. consciousness of that old part of you that wants to stay the same. Now, you don't need meditation for this necessarily, but it is a powerful tool that you can use to allow you to develop that consciousness. Now, it's kind of scary for me to say you don't need meditation, because at a deeper level, if you really want to create change, if you really want to step into your new reality, you're going to need to use the tool of meditation. It's going to connect back into what it is that you truly want to create. And it's going to allow you to develop that skill set of observing your ego, just observing the negativity, observing the thoughts, observing the heavy emotions, and just letting them go. Now, here's the thing, is that we don't want to do this. We don't want to observe. We don't want to allow. We want to stay stuck and run away from the pain. We want to run away from the uncomfort. Now you have to learn to step into the uncomfort. And when you're trying to create that business change or that relationship change or the health change or going to the gym, you have a tangible skill set of knowing how to let go of that old version of you. Now, this is not going to be easy. There's going to be heaviness around this, believe me. But to make it easier is to understand the process of how all of this works, to make it easy, to make the uncomfortable as it can be by becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable. Become comfortable with stepping out of your comfort zone. Understand that if you don't do this, ultimately the power of the universe, which is just things are changing, will push you into change eventually. Either you come to terms with this by you becoming aware of the fact that you have to face your demons, or the universe will push you into the reality of such a high degree of uncomfort that you'll have to create a change. Now, that pain threshold can either happen naturally when you realize you hate your life, or you can choose right now to start stepping into that pain and realize that you actually don't like your life. You actually don't enjoy your life right now. When you truly realize that, you'll be driven to step out of your comfort zone and become comfortable with it. That's why success stories always start off with somebody hating their life, and they totally change their life around in a matter of months because they reach that pain threshold. That's what happened to me in school. I absolutely hated what I was doing, and then it just pushed me to create real, tangible change because of the awareness of where I was currently at. It's the lack of awareness that keeps you stuck. So to tangibly do this is to understand that observing and allowing that old self to be, accepting that old self, observing it, letting it go, paradoxically accepting it and observing it allows you to let it go. And then you continue to take action with that new version of you. Now, when you understand this, it's absolutely effortless to create change. But it still involves effort, but it's almost like an effortless effort where you're putting in the effort, but you also have the balance of knowing when it's time to let go of the resistance. You're continually taking action towards that new version of you that you want to be, but you're also letting go. Now, this really comes down to a core understanding of your awareness and your consciousness. Because the more awareness and consciousness that you develop of your ego, what you'll find is that your ego wants to stay the same, it wants to stay comfortable. And when you get really good at observing that ego in your meditation, observing that ego in your daily life, observing that ego when you try to step into the new reality, now you have a powerful foundation and skill set to be able to create real, powerful, tangible change that lasts in your life, in your business, in your health, in your relationships. And that's the truth to change, is understanding that your ego does not want to change. It doesn't. It doesn't want to change. It just wants to stay comfortable. I know how that's hard to hear for some of you, but the truth is that that's the only way to change, is to understand the mechanism of what keeps you stuck where you're at, what keeps you in that reality. Why is it that the ego clings onto reality even though it actually sucks to be in that reality? There's heaviness, there's darkness, yet it attaches to the darkness. Why? Because at some level, it knows that it has to kill off that version of itself in order to step into the new reality. And it doesn't want to do that. The old version of you doesn't want to do that. The old version of you doesn't want to kill itself off. It wants to stay alive. psychologically keeping the identity alive. Now understand that you really want to see that the ego attaches to its reality. It attaches to its current state. It clings onto its thoughts. It clings onto its emotions. It clings onto reality, not realizing that it's actually keeping itself stuck. So what I'd recommend to you is to start meditating, start observing the old self, and really understand this whole mechanism of the ego backlash, because this understanding will increase your chances at least times 1,000 to create change in your life. Just understanding that the ego wants to stay the same. So when you try to make change and 2 weeks later, you're meditating, for example, and then you notice like, I don't really want to meditate today. There's heaviness in my experience, Francis. Like, I've been meditating for 2 weeks every single day, but today I just don't really feel like doing it. You see, watch out for that. Become conscious of the fact that is your old self pulling you back into the old 1.0 version of you. Now, most people blindly follow this, but now that you've watched this video, you'll understand that at that 2 week, 3 week mark, that old version of you will try to pull you back. It will really try to keep you stuck. Just understanding this will already make massive changes in your life. To take it a step further, start meditating, start becoming more aware of your consciousness, start going deeper into who you really are beyond the limited ego sense of self, and you will understand how to create real, tangible, actual change in your life. So that's all I have for this video. If you want to download my free guided meditation that's specifically designed to connect you deeper to the present moment, I want you to hit the link that's in the description box of this video, and also hit the link I'll leave it as a comment in this video as well, and you can download that free guided meditation. So that's all I have for you today. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.